So you want to win in Mahjong, huh? Well, with Mahjong Soul being the biggest free-to-play Riichi Mahjong client in the world on browser, mobile, and Steam, it's never been a better time to pick up this beautiful game where anything can happen.
What? No!
Mahjong Soul plays with the Japanese-style Riichi Mahjong rules that you might have seen in anime. And while it can be complex, it's also a deceptively simple game that anyone can learn, play, and win in just a few minutes. There are tons of individual rules and special hands, but on the most basic level, Mahjong is just counting to 3 a bunch of times and being a little lucky. So rather than teaching you every rule and special case, this video aims to only give you exactly what you need to start playing, winning, and having fun with millions of players around the world. In fact, you don't even need to watch the whole video. I've divided our winning strategy into 3 levels, depending on your taste. And even knowing up to level 1 can get anyone out of Mahjong Soul's beginner ranks. But before that, this video is sponsored by Yostar and Mahjong Soul in celebration of their limited time collaboration with the legendary anime Gintama. There are several handsome Gintama characters available to pull, including Gintoki and Katsura, along with limited outfits for them, Gintama-themed decorations, a new event mode designed for thrilling comebacks, and a collab story that you unlock during the event. This collab is only available for a limited time, so make sure to check out Mahjong Soul on browser, mobile, or Steam right now. Link in the description. Back to the video. You just need to remember this word. It's Riichi.
Riichi. Riichi-nya.
Not Pon or Chii. It starts with a hand of 13 tiles. On your turn, you'll draw another tile from the wall, which you can then either discard face up in front of you, or exchange it by discarding a different tile from your hand. Your goal is to make a hand with 4 sets of 3 tiles each, and 1 pair. The sets of 3 can either be a triplet, which is 3 of the exact same tile, or a sequence, a 3 tile straight like 1, 2, 3, or 5, 6, 7, all in the same suit. Every kind of tile in the game has 4 copies, and you'll be getting most of your sets of 3 and one of the 3 suits of tiles, So, Pin, and Man. And by the way, make sure to find the international tile set in settings. Other than the suited tiles, there are tiles with bigger Chinese characters on them called honor tiles. But they can't form sequences like 1, 2, 3. They can only make identical pairs and triplets. So you could just throw them away unless you have a pair or triplet of them. Keep the number tiles that are close to each other to build your 4 sets of 3 and 1 pair. And then occasionally you might be interrupted by this prompt asking to call Chii, Pon, or Kan on someone else's discarded tile. These are ways to incorporate tiles from other players into our hand. However, for our level 1 strategy, always skip this. And to really avoid temptation, there's a button to turn off all these calls on the side. If we don't call Pon, Chii, or Kan on anyone's tiles, once we only need 1 more tile to complete our hand, which is called having tenpai, we can declare Riichi. It's like making a bet and calling Uno at the same time, gambling 1,000 points, locking our hand in, and forcing us to discard any tiles that we draw until we find our winning tile. So once we click it, there's nothing left to do besides wait for our tile. If we draw our winning tile, we can declare Tsumo to get points divided from all the other players. Or, if someone else discards our winning tile for us, we can call Ron to take the points of that specific player. They're big and colorful buttons that are hard to miss. But if you're afraid you might misclick, there's also an auto win feature on the side too. And if you ever forget what tile you need, you can click and hold the exclamation point on the side to remind you. And that's it for level 1. Build your hand, don't call Pon and Chii, click Riichi and win. It's not always going to work, nothing in Mahjong does, so just keep trying, and eventually you'll get lucky and get yourself out of the beginner ranks, and have plenty of fun along the way. But maybe you're a rebel and you try clicking these other colorful buttons just to see what happens. When the 3rd tile of a pair in your hand gets discarded by someone, you click on Pon and snatch that tile, add it to your pair, and make a triplet to the side. It's like you took an extra turn. You even have to discard another tile to make up for the one you just added to the hand. You may also decide to call Chii, which similarly helps you complete sequences in your hand. And you may or may not notice that you can only call Chii against the player to your left, who takes their turn before you, whereas Pon will work on anyone. But then when you finally get into Tenpai, you see the words, no Yaku. For some reason you can't win even if you get your tile. What gives? Remember when I said a hand needs to have 4 sets of 3 and a pair in order to win? Well, it also needs a Yaku, which are certain patterns and win conditions that allow a hand to score points. These Yaku reward you for winning in all kinds of special ways, ranging from having a full 1 to 9 straight in your hand to winning on the last tile on the wall. But you also can't win without at least 1 Yaku, even if you do have all your sets in your pair. Just like if you don't have a password, your phone or computer is just an expensive rock. Your Yaku is that password, and Riichi happens to be the easiest possible Yaku to make because it only requires you to build your hand yourself and say Riichi. And thus, no matter what your hand looks like, you can always call Riichi, unless you're broke, or it's Lester. But if you end up calling Pon or Chii, you now have an open hand, which disqualifies you from a lot of Yaku. These disqualified Yaku are labeled Nen Zenshin, or close only. including Riichi. So the instant we call Pawn or Chii and open our hand, we can't Riichi, and thus we've lost our Yaku and can no longer win, unless we can find another Yaku that works with our open hands. Enter level 2. Pawn the Yakuhai. The Yakuhai are specific honor tiles that give you a Yaku just for having a triplet of them. Conveniently, if you happen to have a pair of one of these Yakuhai, you can just call Pawn to lock in the triplet and your Yaku. But be careful, not every honor tile is a Yakuhai. The dragon tiles are the colorful ones, red, white, and green. And a triplet of any of these will always give us a dragon Yaku. The other honor tiles in black font are the wind tiles. We only care about the ones that give us either the seat wind or prevalent wind Yaku. The wind tiles correspond to the cardinal directions: east, south, west, and north. In Mahjong, every player at the table is also given a designated direction, with the dealer, the one who starts every round, always being east. These rotate every time a non-dealer wins a hand, and you can always tell which direction your seat is in by checking the bottom left corner of the centerpiece. This is the seat wind tile. If you get a triplet of this particular wind, you get a Yaku. You can also get a Yaku if you have a triplet of the wind that matches the current round. Most of the time, this is going to be the east wind, because you'll only be playing the south round if you're playing a south game, or if no one has 30,000 points at the end of the east round. Here's an example. Right away, we check the centerpiece to see what honor tiles we actually care about. We always care about the dragon tiles, red, white, and green, and it's the east round and we're in the north seat, so we'll be keeping an eye on the east and north wind tiles too. We do have one copy of the east wind, which doesn't help us much yet, but we can throw away the useless south and west tiles first, just in case something like this happens. If I didn't draw the second east that turn, I probably would have discarded and went for Riichi. But since I have it now, I can quickly pawn from my Yakuhai triplet, get into Tenpai on the 3-pin, and close out the round before anyone else gets a chance. Sometimes, once you know which tiles give you a Yaku, calling fast open hands is pretty simple. Once you have your Yakuhai triplet, you can pawn and Chii whatever you want and win. You could also call pawn and Chii on other tiles before you turn your Yakuhai pair into a triplet, but it's a riskier strategy since you won't be able to win if you don't get that triplet later. And if you only have one copy of these tiles, don't even bother. Once you get some better tiles, like any number between 3 and 7, chuck those honor tiles away and just stick to building a Riichi hand instead. But while calls themselves aren't difficult, call mistakes are extremely punishing, since you'll be stuck with that meld to the side for the rest of the hand. So, before you call on a tile, know what tile you need in advance. In real life Mahjong, no one will wait for you to think if you want to pawn a tile. You have to already know you want the tile and say pawn immediately. Otherwise, the next player will take their turn, and it's already too late. Well, that's not the case in online Mahjong. It's incredibly helpful to say in your head, pawn the white dragon, Chii the 3-so, or whatever other tile you need. It wastes less time on the clock, but more importantly, you won't get confused by pawn and Chii calls you didn't even know were possible. If you didn't already know you wanted the tile, you don't need it. Even if you do miss a helpful call, you could probably still draw it yourself or get a second chance to pawn or Chii it later. But if you make a bad call, there may be no recovering from that. Especially don't try to call a set that you already have, since the game will block you from discarding the same tile that you just called for. That one can be painful. So just call the tiles that you know you need, and work through in your head which tiles you would like to call so that you could smoothly proceed with your strategy. And if you ever see the purple Khan button, just don't do it. Khan is used to upgrade a triplet in your hand into a quad, which for a Mahjong hand is still treated mostly like a triplet. There are small benefits to calling a Khan, but the most important one is that it creates another Dora, which is a tile that is randomly shiny and worth more points, and is always the tile that comes after the tile shown in the top left. More Dora in the game means more points for everyone. Usually not you. So unless you're okay with giving someone else a lot of points when they win, you should probably only do a con if you are very close to winning, such as if you're already in Tenpai. There's also a special kind of con called a closed con that you could do if you happen to draw all 4 of the tiles into your hand. This con doesn't actually open your hand since all the tiles came from you. So you can make a closed con and still call Riichi, or even make a closed con during your Riichi, which is pretty cool. You still shouldn't do it unless you're about to win though. And that's level 2. You now know how to win with a fast open hand with the Yakuhai, and with a closed hand with Riichi. Between these two Yaku, you should have no trouble at all winning games. But you might notice that winning with your open hands tends to be less points than winning with Riichi. This is mostly for 2 reasons. The first is that Riichi gives you a second set of Dora tiles called the Uradora, which you can randomly have in your hand and get a bunch of extra points. And Riichi also stacks with lots of other closed Yaku, such as the fully concealed hand when you win with Sumo, or the Ipatsu Yaku if you win immediately after the Riichi. So generally the same hand is worth more points being closed and with Riichi. And Yaku all stack with each other, so you could also Riichi with a Yakuhai triplet and get even more points, but that's pretty rare. But there is an extremely common Yaku that can often make your Riichi hands even more valuable, and can be used in open hands with incredible speed. A Yaku fit for the strongest Mahjong players in the world. All simples, or Tanyao. is a Yaku where the hand does not have any honor tiles or terminal tiles, which are the 1s and 9s. This means every set and pair in your hand needs to be made of any of the numbers between 2 through 8, which is barely a restriction since it gives you plenty of tiles to work with, and the honor and terminal tiles aren't very efficient anyway since they can't make as many sequences. Since it's so simple to make, it's great alongside Riichi to give your closed hands a little more value. But Tanyao can also be used with open hands, meaning you could call Chii and Pawn as much as you like as long as you eventually throw out all of your honor and terminal tiles. Whenever you don't have any Yakuhai, Tanyao is your main way of opening up hands. And even if your hand does use a few honor or terminal tiles, it's not that difficult to replace your pair of honor tiles with a pair of simple tiles. And if you have a 1, 2, 3 or 7, 8, 9, if you draw the 4 or 6, you can discard the terminal tile and slide your sequence to be a Tanyao friendly 2, 3, 4 or 6, 7, 8 instead. Finding opportunities like these to upgrade your hand into Tanyao is one of the marks of a strong Mahjong player. However, it's usually not a good idea to force your hand to be Tanyao if a significant part of your hand is already using honor tiles or terminal tiles. For example, don't cut your only pair just because it's a pair of 9s. But if you happen to draw a lot of simple tiles, including another pair, then you can think of cutting it. You also shouldn't cut the 1 or 9 from a 1, 2, 3 or 7, 8, 9 early. If you cut the sequence early, you're more likely to run into something called Furiten. Furiten happens when one of the tiles that could complete your hand is in your discards, and it locks you out of declaring Ron, which means you can no longer win on anyone's discards, and you can only win by drawing your winning tile yourself with Sumo. Even if it means we don't get Tanyao, you should avoid getting in Furiten as much as possible, so try to keep those terminal tiles if they are still helping your shapes. And that's Riichi Mahjong. If you've made it this far, you're more than ready to start taking on the world. Of course, there's a lot more to Mahjong than just that. There's a whole world of cool stuff to discover with all the different Yaku and complex shapes and reading, but none of that is necessary to get started and enjoy playing in ranked rooms or with friends in Mahjong Soul. So you could pick up those things as you go along. Like, comment, subscribe if you found this helpful. And if you want even more beginner tips, check out this other video I made. And again, make sure to check out the limited time Gintama collab in Mahjong Soul while you're at it. Thanks again to Yostar and Mahjong Soul for sponsoring this video. See you next time.